My wife and I were a team. I built my passion project, a fictional audio drama podcast, from our basement in Portland, and she was my biggest fan, or so I thought. When a famous host invited her on a massive show, I was proud. But I listened in horror as she told my fictional story to millions, claiming it was the true story of my affair. She painted herself as the victim and me as the monster, all for fame. This is the story of that ultimate betrayal and how I used the very platform she tried to destroy me with to broadcast the devastating truth. This is more than a story about an extramarital affairs podcast. It's about a war fought with microphones. You have to hear the final episode to believe it. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks a bunch. The silence after a lie is told is a sound all its own. It's a vacuum, a hollow space where the truth used to be. I was sitting in my recording studio, which is a generous term for the soundproof corner of our basement in Portland, listening to that silence. It was broken only by the low hum of my audio interface and the frantic, shallow rhythm of my own breathing. On my screen was the paused waveform of a podcast. Not my podcast, but a much bigger one with millions of listeners. And the voice that had just finished speaking, the voice that had just methodically, beautifully, and cruelly disemboweled my life, belonged to my wife, Chloe. She had told them my story, not our story, mine. The one I had bled for, the one I had spent 2 years writing, recording, and producing in this very room. My fictional masterpiece, The Ghost of You, a serialized audio drama about a marriage collapsing under the weight of an affair. And she had just told the world it was real, that it was about us, that I was the cheating husband, and she was the brave, shattered woman left in the wreckage. I hit rewind, needing to hear it again, like a man pressing on a bruise to confirm the pain is real. So Chloe, the famous hostess voice, a smooth, empathetic baritone, purred through my headphones. You're saying your husband, Leo, the creator of the show, based the entire thing on his own affair? A pause. Then Chloe's voice, thick with a performance of unshed tears. I didn't want to believe it at first, but all the details. The secret late nights, he said, were writing sessions. The hushed phone calls. It was all there. Listening to his show was like reading his diary. He wasn't creating a story, he was confessing. My stomach turned. It was a lie of such breathtaking audacity that I almost had to admire it. We'd met in college. I was a quiet literature major, she was a whirlwind of drama club energy. I loved her ambition, the way she saw the world as a stage and wanted the starring role. When I decided to turn my passion for writing into a podcast, she was my biggest cheerleader. You're a genius, Leo, she'd say, kissing my cheek as I emerged from the basement after a 10-hour recording session. We're going to be famous. I always corrected her. You're going to be famous, Chloe. I'm just the guy in the basement with a microphone. But she loved the reflection of my minor, niche success. She loved being the beautiful, supportive wife of the indie darling creator. The Ghost of You had found a small but fiercely loyal audience. It was my art, my soul poured into audio files. The story of Mark and Eliza was a work of pure fiction, a thought experiment on how relationships decay. I'd spent months crafting the nuances, the specific lies Mark told, the specific way Eliza found out. It was all mine, and Chloe knew it. She'd read every draft. She'd listened to every rough cut. She'd even suggested a line of dialogue once. Make her find a receipt in his pocket, she'd offered. It's classic. It's relatable. Now, on this podcast, she was claiming that receipt was real. He used our life, our pain, for downloads, she sobbed to the host. He monetized my heartbreak. The cognitive dissonance was staggering. This was the woman who, just last night, had curled up next to me on the sofa, her head on my chest. I'm so proud of you, baby, she'd whispered. This final season is your best work. We had a life. A quiet, happy life in a leafy Portland suburb. We had inside jokes and a favorite Thai restaurant. We were a team. I loved her. But the woman on this podcast was a stranger. A brilliant, terrifying stranger who knew all my secrets and wasn't afraid to invent new ones. The opportunity had arrived 2 weeks ago. Chloe had been networking relentlessly, trying to build her own brand as a lifestyle influencer. She'd finally landed a guest spot on Unfiltered Truths, a chart-topping show about raw, authentic stories. I was thrilled for her. "What are you going to talk about?" I'd asked, pouring her a celebratory glass of wine. "Oh, you know," she'd said, waving her hand dismissively. "The hustle, supporting a creative partner, the real life behind the art. That kind of stuff." She smiled, a bright camera-ready smile. "Don't worry, I'll make you sound amazing." Now, listening to the finished product, I realized she had made me sound like a monster, and she had done it with the precision of a surgeon. She used details from my fictional scripts, the name of the other woman, Jasmine, the coffee shop where the affair began, and presented them as fact. It was my world, twisted and repurposed into a weapon against me. The host, of course, was eating it up. "That is the most profound betrayal I have ever heard," he declared. "To have your life stolen and turned into a story for public consumption. Chloe, you are a warrior." I finally clicked stop. The silence rushed back in, heavier this time. I looked around my studio, at the microphone that had captured every word of my story, at the scripts piled high on my desk, at the whiteboard where I'd mapped out the entire plot, a web of character arcs and plot twists. It was my sanctuary, and she had just detonated a bomb in the middle of it. My phone, which had been silent on the desk, lit up. It was a notification from Twitter, then another, and another. I picked it up with a trembling hand. My name was trending. The messages were a tidal wave of hate. "Leo is cancelled. What a disgusting pig, using his wife's pain for clicks. I used to love the ghost of you. Now I see it for what it is. A narcissist's confession. Unsubscribed. Someone get Chloe a book deal. She deserves to tell her side of the story." Then an email popped up. It was from my biggest sponsor, a mattress company that had been with me from the beginning. The subject line was urgent, regarding your podcast. I felt a cold dread creep up my spine. This wasn't just about my feelings. This was my livelihood. This was everything I had built, turning to ash in real time. I stood up, my legs unsteady. I walked out of the basement and up into the quiet house. Everything looked the same. The comfortable sofa, the photos of us on the mantelpiece, smiling on vacation. But it was all a set now. The set of a life that was no longer real. I had been so deeply in love with her, so intertwined, that I had allowed her to become the co-author of my life. I'd given her access to my most vulnerable creative spaces, a codependent bond I'd mistaken for a perfect partnership. I saw it now. Her need for the spotlight was not a charming quirk, it was an all-consuming hunger, and she had just fed it my heart. The front door opened. Chloe walked in, flushed with excitement, her phone in her hand. She looked up and saw me standing in the hallway. "Leo, did you hear it? It's blowing up. We're everywhere," she said, her voice buzzing with adrenaline. I just stared at her, the woman I thought I knew, the woman who had been my world. "Chloe," I said, my voice barely a whisper. "What did you do?" Her smile faltered for a fraction of a second, then snapped back into place, even brighter this time. "What do you mean?" I told our story. "It's powerful, Leo. It's real. It's real. People connect with real." And in that moment, I understood. She wasn't just lying to the world. She was trying to lie to me too, to gaslight me into believing this new reality she had created, to make me a supporting character in the story of her tragic, beautiful fame. The love I felt for her curdled into something cold and sharp. This wasn't a misunderstanding. This was a hostile takeover. She hadn't just stolen my story. She was trying to steal my life. If you enjoyed this video or found it helpful, go ahead and give it a like. It really helps me out. And if you haven't already, hit that subscribe button so you don't miss any future videos. Thanks a bunch. Our story, I repeated, the words tasting like poison. There is no our story, Chloe. There's my story, the one I wrote, the one you know is fiction. And then there's the lie you just told to millions of people. The brilliant, triumphant glow in her eyes flickered. For a second, a flash of something ugly, annoyance, anger, crossed her face. But it was gone as quickly as it came, replaced by a mask of wounded sensitivity. "Don't be like this, Leo," she said, her voice softening, taking a step towards me. "Don't be so literal. Art is truth. You took inspiration from the texture of our life, from the little arguments we had. I expanded on it. I gave it a soul." I flinched back as if she were carrying a disease. "A soul? You accused me of having an affair, Chloe. You gave a name to a woman who doesn't exist and a location to a betrayal that never happened. You didn't give it a soul. You gave it a false identity and slapped my name on it. "You're being dramatic," she said, her voice turning sharp. The mask was slipping. "My phone has been ringing off the hook. Agents, publishers. Anya Vance herself said I have the most compelling voice she's ever heard. This is a good thing for us. The downloads for your show are going to go through the roof." The cognitive dissonance was a physical force, making the room tilt. She was standing in the ruins of my reputation, a lit match in her hand, and telling me to admire the bonfire. She truly believed that her fame justified my destruction, that my pain was an acceptable, even necessary byproduct of her success. She wasn't just a narcissist, she was a black hole, and she was trying to pull my entire world into her orbit. That was the moment the trauma bond shattered. The part of me that loved her, that wanted to believe this was a monstrous mistake, just died. It was a quiet, clean death. In its place, a cold, clear purpose began to form. "Get out," I said. The words were quiet, but they hung in the air with the weight of steel. "What?" She laughed, a short, disbelieving bark. "Don't be ridiculous. Where would I go?" "I don't care," I said, my voice gaining strength. I walked past her into the living room and grabbed her laptop from the coffee table. I picked up her handbag from the floor. I walked to the front door and opened it, placing her things neatly on the welcome mat. "But you're not staying here." "I'm sure not staying here." Her face contorted with rage. "You can't do this. You can't just throw me out." "I can," I said, looking her dead in the eye. "You built your new career on the premise that I destroyed our home. You can't very well keep living in it, can you? It's bad for your brand." I closed the door on her sputtering, furious face and slid the deadbolt home. The click was the most satisfying sound I had ever heard. It was the sound of a boundary being formed. It was the sound of the war beginning. The next 48 hours were a blur of damage control. I lost 3 of my 4 sponsors. My social media was an unreadable cesspool of vitriol. My own parents called, confused and worried, having heard the news from a cousin. I spent an hour on the phone with them, my voice cracking as I tried to explain the surreal nightmare I was living in. But amidst the chaos, I was working. Chloe thought she had fought me in the court of public opinion. She was wrong. She had fought me in my own arena. The one place where I was the expert. The one place where I had all the evidence. I didn't need to prove my innocence to the world. I just needed to tell the truth. And I was going to do it in a final special episode of The Ghost of You. I locked myself in the basement. First, I hired a lawyer who specialized in intellectual property and defamation. He was a shark, and his eyes lit up when I explained the situation. While he drafted cease and desist letters, I got to work building my case. Chloe had made one fatal error. She assumed my creative process was as ethereal and untraceable as her lies. She was wrong. I was a meticulous archivist. I had everything. I had the original voice notes on my phone from 3 years ago, time-stamped, where I first sketched out the character of Mark. I had the initial mind maps, dated, showing the fictional plot points. I had every draft of every script, saved in a cloud folder, showing the evolution of the story. Most damningly, I had hundreds of text messages from Chloe herself. Nav 14, 2021, just read the script for EP4. OMG, when Eliza finds the theater tickets. Devastating. Your best writing yet. Feb 2, 2022. This Jasmine character is so deliciously evil. I love to hate her. June 25, 2022. Babe, I'm bored. Come up from the basement. Your little fake people can wait. I spent the next week weaving it all together. I wasn't writing a script, I was compiling a documentary. I laid a bed of somber music, the same score my listeners associated with my show. Then, I began to narrate. For 2 seasons you've listened to the story of Mark and Eliza, I began, my voice clear and steady. A fictional story about betrayal. Today, I'm going to tell you a true story. The story of how this podcast and my life were stolen. I'm calling this episode, The Real Ghost. I played the clip from Unfiltered Truths, where Chloe claimed my story was a confession. Then, I began to dismantle her lie, piece by piece, with cold, hard evidence. I played my time-stamped voice notes. I read her own text messages aloud, her cheerful words a stark contrast to the heartbroken narrative she was now selling. I explained, with the calm precision of a bomb disposal expert, how every plot point she claimed was real had been documented as fiction months, sometimes years before. The final piece was a recording I found on my laptop. A voice memo from a year ago. We were in the car, and I was talking through a plot hole I was struggling with. Chloe was in the passenger seat. On the recording you can hear me say, "I just don't know how Mark could have kept the secret for so long. It feels unrealistic." And then, clear as a bell, you hear Chloe's voice. "Oh please, Leo, it's fiction. Who cares if it's realistic? Just make it dramatic." I let her words hang in the silence. Then I spoke one last time. The ghost of you was never about a real affair. But it has, in the end, become the story of a real betrayal. Not by a husband, but by a wife, my wife, who loved the idea of the spotlight more than the truth, and more than me. This is the final episode. Thank you for listening. I uploaded the file and hit publish. Then I turned off my computer, walked upstairs, and for the first time in 2 weeks I slept. The fallout was nuclear. The episode didn't just go viral, it became a cultural event. The Real Host trended for 3 days. My evidence was so overwhelming, so irrefutable, that public opinion turned on a dime. The narrative flipped from Leo the monster to Chloe the sociopath. Anya Vance, the host of Unfiltered Truths, issued a formal, groveling apology and removed Chloe's episode. The book agents and producers who had been calling her went silent. Her 15 minutes of fame were over, and all she had to show for it was a mountain of disgrace. My lawyer had a field day. We settled out of court. Chloe signed a non-disclosure agreement so tight she couldn't even say my name in public without facing a lawsuit. She got nothing. No house, no money, no fame. I don't know what happened to her, and I don't care to know. I shut down the ghost of you, letting that final, truthful episode be its epitaph. The pain she caused was real, but in the end she gave me a gift. She forced me to find my own voice, not the voice of a character, but my own. I'm starting a new podcast now. It's non-fiction. It's about how people rebuild after their lives are demolished. It's about resilience. It's about the power of the truth. It's my story, and this time, I'm the only one who gets to tell it.